Hello again, welcome back to Harry's Jeti Clinic. This is episode 2 of the Beginner's Guide to Logic Switches. And in this episode, we're going to look at how you program a Jeti logic switch and then how to assign that logic switch to do what it's meant to be doing. I do apologise if there's any loud background noises. I've got 2 hedgehogs just outside my workshop, and from time to time they're getting very noisy, snuffling around looking for food. So Mr. and Mrs. Tiggy Winkle, hello, but hopefully they'll be quiet for a few minutes. Now, in the last episode, we looked at how to work out whether you even need a logic switch in the first place. And then we looked at what is logic and then how to choose the right logic switch for what you're trying to do. So having done all that, let's take an example of how to program a Jeti logic switch. And I'm going to use an example of you've got landing lights and they're on a switch here. We'll use that. I'm going to use a servo to demonstrate. I move the switch. The servo goes from off to lights on. Yep. But you want the lights to switch off when you switch the wheels up, so that if we use this switch here as our retract or gear switch, gear down, gear up, when the wheels go up, no matter what the switch here is doing for the lights would go off. So for instance, you could taxi out, line up on the runway. I do this with my Carf Eurosport, which is painted up as one of the RAF's Eurofighter Typhoons. Oh, be quiet, dear. And I copy what they do in the full-size Typhoon display. I've got very powerful lights on the legs. They're from Unilight Austria. Line up on the runway, and just before takeoff, I switch the lights on. Lights come on, lovely. Blast up for takeoff, and as soon as you retract the wheels, the lights go off. I can leave the switch on, fly around. As soon as I put the wheels down, the lights come back on for landing, and then as I taxi back in, I can switch the lights off. So this is 2 switches that we want to compare the position of and make a decision. If you remember back to episode 1, I said, how do you know if you need a logic switch? Well, if you have 2 or more things that you want to compare, and based on that make a decision, then it's valid to use a logic switch. So, yep, it's a logic switch. Next, think about it. What do I want to do? There's 4 possible combinations of switch positions here. I can have this switch up, this switch down or up, this switch down, and this switch up or down. Well, remember back to our logic table. Lovely. For example, here's the AND logic table. 4 possible combinations. Okay, that's good. And what is it we want to do? Just think about it in plain language. I only want the lights to come on when the light switch is on and the wheels are down. There's a clue there, the word and. Any other condition, I want the lights off. So the lights must only be on when that switch and that switch are down. Well, that gives us, of course, the big clue. It's going to be an AND switch. Here's our 2 switches off, lights off. 1 switch is on, lights off. The other switch is on, lights off. Only when both of them are on, lights come on. Great. Makes life nice and easy. So off we go. We've decided we need a logic switch. We know which kind of logic switch we want. We go into the menu, Advanced Properties, Logical Switches. We only need 1 logic switch. You can give it a label if you like. Let's give it a label. It helps to find the correct logic switch later on when you're assigning them. If you've done lots of logic switches, rather than just, golly, am I assigning logic switch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever to this thing? If it's got a name to it, it's a lot easier to know which one you're talking about. Come along here, enabled, come down. Now, control 1, it's not going to matter which way round we assign these really. So control 1 can be the light switch itself. So I go into there and I move the lights to the on position. Yeah, because it's both switches down is when I want it to come on. If I'd got the switch in the wrong position and moved it, I would just press reverse. Otherwise, you could press clear and do it all again. Okay, doke. Come down. Control 2 will be this switch. Say OK. So now you can see both switches are on. If I switch one off, that goes off. Switch that off, that one's off. And what's the condition that we want? This is the important one. Choose and. There we go. And now with both switches on, the switch output from logic switch 1 is on. If either switch is off, it's off. And if both switches are off, it's off. So the logic switch is doing what we want. Excellent. Nice and easy. Okay, now let's go to our servo, which is, I say, acting as the light controller. And we switch it on. Good. The lights are on. And you think to yourself, hang on, the retract switch is up. It's not going on or off. It's not having any effect. Well, that's because we may have created a logic switch using that switch. And the logic switch is giving an output, but that output is going nowhere. It's just blank. I shall show you one of my no expense spared diagrams. There. Here's the logic switch we've made with input A and input B. And there's the logic switch and there's its output. And that's it. It's going nowhere. We have to do something with it. Ta-da! You have to then go to whatever it is you want, the function, flight modes, dual rate, wherever, you can assign an input and assign the logic switch as its input. Okay, how do we do that? Well, back into menu. In this case, nice and easy. Function assignment. The lights are assigned to switch C. Yeah, which is why it's working. So what we need to do is change that to the relevant logic switch. So we'll clear out the switch, press plus to get the menu, logic switches, and there it is. Remember earlier on I said it's useful to give it a name if you're using lots of logic switches. If this is the only one in the model, you know it's going to be L1. But in a more complex model, you could have quite a lot of logic switches, which is why it's handy to give it a name. You know you're picking the right one. So we'll say OK to that. OK to that. And now, with any luck, let's have a look. So, retracts are up, lights are off, servo light switch is in the off position. If I move this switch to the on position, nothing happens. See? This is the light switch. It's having no effect now. The lights are locked in the off position because the retracts are up. I'll leave the lights off, put the retracts down. Now the light switch should work. There we go. Lovely. So, imagine we're taxiing out for takeoff. The retracts, of course, are down. It'd be hard to taxi without it. I've started off with the lights off. Lights are off. I turn onto the runway. I'm ready for takeoff. Start the display. Bingo. Switch the lights on. That gets everybody's attention. Take off. Switch the wheels up and the lights go off. Fly around for 5 to 10 minutes. Ready to land. Wheels down. The lights come back on. I can taxi back in. And as I taxi back in, switch the lights off. There we are. And that is a nice, simple, basic how to make a logic switch and then how to assign it to wherever it needs to be to do its job. So we'll see you for episode 3, in which we'll take a look at some more examples where we won't just be using physical switches, but things like telemetry controls to do work for you, such as your gear failsafe and other items. And in future episodes, we'll start looking at more complicated things and what are all those other options in the logic switch menus. Bye for now.